everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we're going to talk about a lot of crazy things that have been happening over the last few days. Starting with Israel is entering a civil war, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert says. Wow, what a headline. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Switzerland and Italy. Essentially, that area got pounded by the equivalent of a Category 4 hurricane in terms of wind speed. We're going to be talking about Phoenix and Salt Lake and records that have been broken. We're going to be taking a look at the Methodist Church. I did a video a while ago about the Methodist Church, and there's a schism that's been taking place over the last years, but it's really taken off over the last year or two, and now there's a new update on that. We're also going to be looking at Halifax. Salt Lake, Phoenix, and Halifax. I've added some new entries onto my capital cities spreadsheet that I'm going to show you. So more disasters happening in capital cities. So this is going to be intense. Okay, before we jump into it, I have an update on the Book of Mormon challenge, or the Flood the Earth challenge. We have 6,181 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far. And since the last time that I updated this, we have 3 new people that have joined the challenge, which brings us to 623. And a report of somebody meeting with the missionaries, which brings us to 56 reports of people meeting with the missionaries. Last time that we had that was earlier this month on the 7th. So now, toward the end of the month, we've gotten to 56. So good job, everybody. Remember, the goal for the channel is 10. Please try to share at least 10 copies of the Book of Mormon. You can easily do this by using the Gospel Library app. When you go to Scriptures, at the top, there's a share button to share the Book of Mormon. Whenever you report it to me in the comments or in an email, please include #flood because it helps me to find your comment or your email quicker. And please keep your comments whenever you're reporting this. Keep them short. Otherwise, it's hard to sort through things and update the trackers. So, all right, so let's get into it. So first, we're going to go to the yeshiva world. Now, you can watch this video yourself. Okay, this video is on Twitter. It's in a few different places. But the yeshiva world. Low life. Ex-con Olmert shocks UK TV host. We're starting a civil war in Israel. Now, it's really interesting because I don't know what it is about the UK that, wrong one. I don't know what it is about the UK that makes these former prime ministers feel so comfortable about talking about overthrowing the government. But I recently did a video for members only, and I'm going to put this same video out to the main channel. But it's called Ehud Barak's 2020 plan to overthrow the government. That's probably going to come out in the next video or two. Where, well, you'll see. I'll just let it be a surprise. But he essentially talked about this plan at a UK think tank called Chatham House. Okay, so look out for that video. Maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. And now you have former Prime Minister Olmert that's talking about civil war, also to someone in the UK, a UK TV host. Okay, so what did he say? Former prisoner Ehud Olmert told UK's Channel 4 News on Monday evening that the Israeli left is starting a civil war following the passing of the Reasonableness Bill in the Knesset earlier in the day. So that happened yesterday. So this is when he said this. Quote, "This is a serious threat. It's never happened before. We are going into a civil war now." The interviewer interjected, questioning in an astonished voice, "Civil war?" Olmert then decided to tone down his incitement a bit, continuing by saying, quote, "Civil disobedience with all the possible ramifications to the stability of the state, the ability of the government to perform, and to the obedience of the large part of the Israeli population to a government that is perceived by a large part of the population to be illegitimate. The government has decided to threaten the foundations of Israeli democracy, and this is not something that we can accept or tolerate. You guys just wait till you see this video with Ehud Barak, because he talks about the plan of how to overthrow the government. It has everything to do with protests, and I tend to think that it's part of the color revolution strategy. Someone asked me in a recent video, what are color revolutions? I've brought it up a number of times on the channel, so um, just go back and watch a few videos about Israel or about World War III, or just do like a search for World War III on my channel. I have a video there where I explain what it is, but it's essentially a method. Uh, it seems anyway, a method that's been devised uh, in order to essentially cause internal conflict in other nations by like supporting like foreign powers supporting conflict in other nations. um, Protests, which ideally in the mind of the one perpetrating the color revolution, um, wanting to essentially transform it from a protest to a revolution, and to topple the government, or at least make some sort of change that's favorable to the foreign power that's involved. It's an easier form of warfare. You don't have to get all this, civilian support within your own country. Um, you don't have to risk the lives of your own military, and it's less costly. So somehow or another, it seems like they've figured out how to weaponize protests and unrest in other countries that they target. They financially support protests with various things, everything from bricks to tents to flags to whatever the protesters need to have a successful protest, and then ideally a revolution after that in the mind of the people perpetrating the color revolutions. So it would really seem to me, the way that this is happening, that it's someone's taking advantage of this situation with what's going on in Israel. And again, if you don't know what that is, essentially, Israel does not have a constitution. All their laws based on the Declaration of Independence. They don't have a constitution because they wanted to wait until more of the exiles from the Jewish diaspora gathered in to Israel. And then at a later date, once everybody was home, essentially, they'd come up with a constitution. Well, that still hasn't happened yet. And there's political argument about uh, what power the judicial branch has. Those on the right feel that it has too much power. For example, they appoint their own judges, unlike how we do it here in the United States, where judges, at least like Supreme Court justices, are nominated by the executive branch and then confirmed by the legislative branch. Over there, it seems that the judicial itself appoints its own judges. And so the right doesn't like that, which is understandable, I think. Okay, sorry, I'm turning this political. So anyway, they're wanting to put checks and balances on the judicial, and mostly the seculars and the left feel that they're trying to become a dictatorship, because that's what's been going on. That's how the government's worked in Israel since its inception, and so they view it as Netanyahu and his coalition, which include mostly religious people and ultra orthodox, as well as trying to consolidate power and whatever. So this is what this is all about. And here you have this former prime minister talking about on UK news civil war. He just flat out said it. Let's just read it again. This is Olmert. This is a serious threat. It's never happened before. We're going into a civil war now. Such an irresponsible thing to say, unless you're part of that plan to cause civil war, because Israel's going in a direction that the globalists don't like. It's becoming more religious. And this is like one of the things that they have to resort to change the nation to fit in with the globalist plan. Here's the video. You can watch it. There's a little bit more here in the Jerusalem Post. Israel is entering a civil war, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert says. They have the video too. And like I said, you can see it on Twitter. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. Commenters slam Olmert's conviction. Many comments on the Channel 4 News Twitter video appeared unimpressed by Olmert's remarks. Quote, "This old man is a convicted criminal who was in prison because he took a bribe in cash envelopes. And you believe such a man?" Um, and it just goes to show the type of people that, okay, never mind. I'm not going to say that. Replied the commenter. Other comments similarly slammed the former prime minister for his conviction. Another comment read, quote, "Prisoner number 9032478. Olmert is not the first to suggest that Israel is on the path to civil war. Many of Israel's opponents have celebrated what they see as Israel being on its path to destruction. Others have proposed courses of action that Israeli leadership could take in order to mollify the large portion of the country that is upset over the passing of the judicial reform. So I thought that was interesting, and I know this because I've been covering this pretty much since the beginning. It really was starting to take off around March and April because Ramadan and Passover week overlapped, and usually that's a time of high tensions between Arabs, well, Palestinians, and the Jews in Israel. Um, and it seemed like a perfect storm was brewing, and there was talk of civil war all the way back then. But what I didn't know is what I'm about to show you. It actually goes even before that. So how long have these protests been going on? They keep, account of like, oh, now we're on week 29 of the protests. So this is according to Wikipedia, the article called 2023 Israeli Judicial Reform Protests. So the date that they have, and I do believe that this is correct, is the 7th of January, 2023. So pretty much just right at the beginning of the year is when this started. This didn't really come on my radar until probably about March. Um, that's when things were really starting to kind of take off the first time. That was like the first, if this was a birth, I would say that was the first contraction. And what we're experiencing right now today, especially yesterday when the bill passed, was the second contraction. So I wanted to see how long or how many articles can I find where they talk about civil war? Can I put it in chronological order? And I was surprised. It actually goes as far back as, let's see, what is the date here? January 9th. So 2 days after it started. This is from JTA, Jewish Telegraphic Agency. Left-wing Israelis take to the streets as new government presses right-wing agenda further. All right, and this is what they're the first ones that I could see. I did like you know how in Google you can narrow the search results to a certain time frame. I narrowed it. Okay, and this is the earliest one. I went all the way back. I had it all sorted by chronologically. This is the earliest mention that I can find using Google. Okay, JTA. As Israel's new right-wing government continued to signal that it would push through measures to cripple the judiciary, of course that's their opinion and their point of view, a clampdown on public dissent in news operations, thousands of citizens took to the streets in protest, and one prominent opposition figure warned of imminent civil war. Okay, so this is the first mention. One prominent opposition figure warned of imminent civil war. I haven't read the rest of this article to find out who that was. I'm not going that deep into it, but okay, so that was the first mention of it. Okay, what's the next one? Now, I don't have all the articles, so from this point forward, it's just kind of a rough sketch of what there is out there. But what I have noticed is there's kind of a common denominator. The Jerusalem Post seems to bring it up all the time. And what I don't know is if they're doing it to get more people to read their articles, or because like another aspect of successful revolutions and protests and stuff like that is the media itself, because the media essentially acts as like a megaphone and a rallying point, or a motivator for people to join in. And that, I feel like that's what I've noticed with a lot of these news sites, is like they seem to be in support of the protesters, and they seem to be helping to coordinate, like, oh, it's going to be there's going to be a big one at this place at this time. And basically, you just have to go through the articles. But this is one example. In the Jerusalem Post in particular keeps bringing up this term civil war. So January 13th, okay, also right there in the beginning, a civil war is not a joke. Israelis need to wake up. Opinion. This is an opinion piece. So already at the outset, they're talking about civil war. Like at the very beginning, within days. Um, I mean, I don't know. Okay. Jerusalem Post, January 27th, so a little bit later in the month. Who wants an Israeli civil war? Uh, Middle East Monitor. Will a civil war break out in Israel? This was January 17th. Oh, that one should have been before the other one. Okay, February 7th, Jerusalem Post. Over a third of Israelis fear judicial reform will lead to civil war. Poll. So they're already doing a poll at the very beginning, like when this is very first starting. I don't know. Okay. Haaretz. In Israel, a civil war is no longer unthinkable. This is from February 9th. March 28th, Jerusalem Post. Iran watching protests in Israel wanting to believe in civil war. And I don't think it matters the context in which they're using that term. The more that they can repeat it, the more it starts to like resonate with people that are discontent, the belligerents that want to overthrow the elected government. Okay, sorry, step it back. Okay, Times of Israel, the 28th of March. There can be no civil war. That's a quote from full text of Netanyahu's announcement on overhaul pause. So during that first contraction, as I'm calling it, uh, they had to kind of back down because everything got really intense. There was a labor strike, and if I remember right, the airport shut down, and there was all sort of things going on. So they're like, okay, fine, we'll put it on pause. We're going to negotiate. We're going to try and come up with a compromise. Months went by, no compromise. Um, and here we are today. It went through. Okay, Jerusalem Post again. This is May 2nd. Israel is in a quiet civil war over judicial reform. Opinion. So, just matter of factly, they're putting in the minds of people reading this. Well, civil war actually is going on right now. It's quiet at this moment, but we all know where this is headed. Jerusalem Post. Former IDF fighter pilot. I am very afraid of an Israeli civil war. It's on June 7th. And then July 23rd, which brings us up to present. This is 2 days ago. Al Jazeera, in Israeli civil war. And then I thought that this was interesting right here because obviously Al Jazeera, this is like an Arab news company. And the subtitle here is "The Genie is Out of the Bottle." And fanatics won't stop until their apocalyptical messianic redemption is complete, come what may. So they're trying to paint the religious Jews, especially the Orthodox, as being crazy. That's why this is happening, because they're wanting messianic redemption. I was going to read some stuff from this article, but it's pretty controversial. Let's just say that the way that it's worded. Um, don't want to get in trouble here on YouTube, but I'll put the link for it below in case you're interested. Um, and I will tell you the feeling that I get, both from just social media in general, talking to Rabbi Gerfine, it seems like there are a lot of Jews that feel like it is that time, what they refer to as the time of messianic redemption, when Messiah will make his appearance and institute the messianic era of 1,000 years, which I've said before, I think is important because Even though they're expecting a different type of Messiah, I think that the Lord is preparing them to receive the true Messiah when he comes the second time, when he comes to save them and comes to the Mount of Olives. Um, and hopefully that's soon. You know, this whole thing going on with these protests, it has been described as a siege in the media. I showed that in like my last video. Um, David Ramos, one of my subscribers, he was the one that first brought that idea to my attention, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it is a siege!" And it's a siege because they're literally surrounding the Knesset, the Supreme Court building. They've marched to Jerusalem, and on top of that, you have all these strikes that are going on. You have doctors, military, um, labor union, banks, companies that have all withdrawn their services. You know, that's the same. That's the same as a siege in essence. You know, it's different, but for all intents and purposes, it accomplishes the same goal. If you're trying to like take over a country, you're trying to take over a city, whatever, you withdraw services. You in the conventional sense, with the conventional army, you have military checkpoints, and there's no logistics going on in or out of the city or the country, and you're trying to pressure those inside to change. This is just a different sort of siege. It's quite astounding. So, um, now, could this be the final siege, and Christ will come and will save Israel? Are these protesters going to like find courage and motivation and try and topple the government themselves? Is there going to be a military coup? I don't know. Could this be the beginning of something bigger where Israel's enemies are like, okay, everything is fully ripe. There's never going to be a better situation than this to attack. We better take advantage of this. And then we have what we classically think of as the Battle of Armageddon in the siege on Jerusalem, where there's tanks and missiles and troops and stuff like that. I don't know. Nobody knows. We'll just have to wait and see. This could be it is itself, or it could be the beginning of that. Just as a reminder, Tisha B'Av, I think it starts tonight at sundown, if I'm not mistaken. I have to remind myself. No, tomorrow. It starts tomorrow at sundown, Tisha B'Av. This is the day that the Jews observe. It's not a celebration. They observe. They classically believe that this is the day on the Hebrew calendar when both temples were destroyed in other misfortunes in Jewish history. And the news has been making. I feel like it's almost a part of it. The news has been bringing up Tisha B'Av in uh, comparing it to what's happening right now with the protests and being like, hey, the week of Tisha B'Av, this is the week that the bill passed on Monday. A couple days later, it's going to be Tisha B'Av. And so you can see how this could be used uh, psychologically to be a time when something happens. You know, if you're looking to topple the government or whatever, it's like, well, we're going to do it on Tisha B'Av, or something has to happen on Tisha B'Av, but it's not going to be a disaster. This is going to be the fixing of Israel and the saving of Israel, or something like that. Any number of things. It's just interesting that it's happening the same week as Tisha B'Av. And this is the day that the Jews expect, according to Jewish tradition, that they expect the Messiah to be born. So according to them, it would be his first coming. And it would be interesting if Christ came on one of these days or the day after or something like that at his second coming. It'd be very poetic. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I think anything's possible. I do. I do not limit prophecy or the interpretation of prophecy or how things can play out. I think anything is possible, and we may look back with 2020 hindsight and see how everything was fulfilled to the letter. Okay, so let's move on from this. So here's an interesting story. This particular article is talking about Switzerland. One killed in Switzerland when thunderstorm with 135 mile per hour winds tears through town. So look at this. I don't know how to pronounce it. La Chaux de Fonds, Switzerland. A powerful thunderstorm with winds equivalent to a Category 4 hurricane tore through a city in Switzerland on Monday, killing at least one person and injuring several others. The storm barreled through the Swiss town of La Chaux de Fonds in Neuchâtel Mountains, northwest of Bern, Israel. Talking too much about Israel. Bern, Switzerland. Here's a picture, an image showing a powerful thunderstorm tearing through the city of La Chaux de Fonds, Switzerland on Monday, July 24th. So damage, of course, as you would expect from something akin to a category 4 hurricane. So that is kind of really crazy. I don't typically associate winds this strong with Europe, but here you go. I'm not putting this down on any spreadsheet because I haven't seen anything that says this was like record-breaking, unprecedented, or anything like that. But I just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay, Phoenix. If you didn't watch my video where I went over heat and fire and everything that's going on with temperatures across the world, we talked about this record that's going on right now in Phoenix. Temperatures reach 110 degrees for a record 25th straight day in Phoenix as summer swelter continues. Phoenix record-breaking summer of heat continues as the city has recorded temperatures above 110 degrees for 25 consecutive days, extending a national record among large U.S. cities. It's not necessarily cool at night either. Another streak was extended on Monday when the low was recorded at 94 degrees in Phoenix, making it 14 days in a row with lows above 90, which is another national record among larger U.S. cities, according to Kenneth Kunkel, an atmospheric scientist at North Carolina State University. So you get that? So 25 straight days of temperatures at or above 110 degrees. Well, no, it says here above 110. So I guess that's what the record is. So 25 straight days of temperatures above 110 degrees. That is crazy. That is obviously the better part of a month. And then for the lows, the recorded lows of each day, because you know that there's the high and the low every day. 14 days in a row where the low temperature has been above 90 degrees. So that's pretty insane. Here's the forecast for Phoenix as of right now. I'm recording this at about noon on the 25th. So Wednesday, the forecasted high is 114. And then Thursday, 112, and Friday, 111. And then Saturday, it's at 109. So, obviously if this forecast holds, then it looks like there's 3 more days to add on top of the 25. But anything could change. These temperatures could go up or they could go down. All we can say for sure right now is at least 25 consecutive days, but potentially a few more are in store. Salt Lake City and Phoenix hit record highs as temperatures swelter in the west. Temperatures continue to swelter all over the U.S., the western U.S., as record highs were reached this weekend in Salt Lake City and Phoenix. A record temperature of 106 degrees was reached Saturday in Salt Lake City, beating the previous record for the day of 104 in 2022, 2006, and 2003, the National Weather Service said. All right, and then in Phoenix, Saturday's high of 118 in Phoenix broke the record set for the day of 116 degrees in 2006. Saturday was the 23rd consecutive day with highs of 110 or above. Oh, okay. Well, this one clarifies if it's 110 or above. The other article was saying above 110. So it could be 110. So say that Saturday it warms up just 1 degree, then that would qualify because that would take it up to 110. Okay. Um, yeah, so you got that, right? So really hot. There's this situation going on in Greece. You might remember that I had noted that there were wildfires around Athens, the capital of Greece. So I put that on my spreadsheet. It seems I haven't seen much about that, so I think that that's under control. But there's other parts of Greece that are on fire. They're experiencing a lot of wildfires this year. So much so that the title of this article says, "We are at war," quote unquote. More evacuations as Greece battles wildfires. Thousands of people have been evacuated from the Greek islands of Rhodes and Corfu as Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis declared that the Mediterranean nation was at war with wildfires raging across the country. On the resort island of Rhodes, on one of Greece's leading holiday destinations, the flames remained out of control for a seventh day, forcing hundreds of people to flee their homes and hotels, according to a fire brigade spokesperson. The latest evacuations were ordered after 19,000 people, mostly tourists, were moved in buses and boats over the weekend out of the path of the fire that reached several coastal areas from nearby mountains. That was a big bummer going on vacation and having to go through this kind of ordeal, and then it's even worse for the locals whose actual homes and businesses are potentially in danger. It was the country's biggest evacuation effort in recent years. Okay. And here you see Greece, you see the little fire icons right here. And here's Corfu in kind of like the northwest part, it looks like, of the country. And then Rhodes just right off the coast of Turkey down here. All right. So prayers for them. Hopefully it doesn't get worse, but I remember, I think it was 2 years ago. I'm not sure if it was last year, but I know that at least within the last couple of years, there was another time when Greece was dealing with a lot of wildfires, and there was some pretty dramatic footage of people on a beach because there was this incoming wildfire that was going over this mountain and like making its way toward the hotel that was on the beach, and so they couldn't even like go over to the hotel because the fire was so close. It was pretty crazy. But anyway, it looks like there's a lot of crazy fires going on in Greece right now. Again this year. Okay, congregations leave United Methodist Church over defiance of LGBTQ bans. Now, I had done a video about this recently. Okay, called "Another Sign of the Times: The Disintegration of a Major Protestant Church," along with many others. So not just the United Methodist Church. But this is basically an update to that video, and I'll show you. I'll show you what's going on. Okay, Haworth, a lifelong United Methodist who's been a pastor his entire professional life, came to the fount 9 years ago. He says that when he arrived, the 50-member congregation was already unhappy with the direction of the denomination. More recently, the congregation voted unanimously to leave the United Methodist Church because of what Haworth describes as a drift from traditional biblical teachings on morality. So we're starting to see all these schisms with all these different churches. Literally, Christianity is disintegrating. At least the organizations, the churches, the denominations, they're disintegrating, and it has to do with the popular uh, the popular cause of today, the LGBTQ cause. The problem, as Haworth sees it, is that church leaders openly defy this official teaching, and others rule, and other rules that flow from it, such as bans on ordaining LGBTQ clergy and blessing of same-sex marriages. In 2019, the United Methodist General Conference voted to uphold those bans, but a number of bishops and other church leaders, mostly in the US, of course, said that they would openly not enforce these policies as a matter of justice over LGBTQ people. And that's how, no, I'm just going to say it. That's how these people operate, the people on the left. You just do what you want through whatever means necessary. You disobey rules, you disobey the law. It doesn't matter if things are going according to the law, according to, um, legal processes. No, if you know better, then you force your will, or you lay down and you have a temper tantrum. That's how it goes. That's what you're supposed to do. You force everything no matter what. Continuing, around the world, there are more than 12 million United Methodists, with about half of them living in the United States. In this country, the larger and often more conservative congregations tend to be in the South and Midwest. A recent accounting of the United Methodist News Service shows that about 20% of United Methodist congregations, more than 6,000, have left the denomination in recent years. So this is a new number to me. Let's go to an article that I covered in the last video. In the last video, this is from christianpost.com. Over 5,000 United Methodist churches granted disaffiliation amid schism over homosexuality, 3,000 in 2023 alone. Okay, so the number that we just read in the new article is 6,000. So it seems, if I'm understanding this correctly, that it's increased by 1,000. I wanted to do a quick reminder of what it said here. After an active week of United Methodist Church regional conferences, the number of congregations approved to disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church in the last 2 years has surpassed the 5,000 mark. So, by the way, the date of this article was, just last month, June 10th. This week, according to numbers compiled by News, the number of churches that have had their disaffiliation votes approved by the annual conferences under paragraph 2553 of the UMC Book of Discipline went from around 4,600 on Tuesday to 5,321 as of Friday morning. Okay, so the most recent number, it's 6,000 now. Did it say over? Yeah, more than 6,000. Although the News numbers include all churches that have been granted the right to disaffiliate since 2019, there has been a strong uptick in departures beginning last year, with around 2,000 congregations having their disaffiliation votes approved in 2022 and over 3,000 so far in 2023. I thought there was somewhere here where it talked about how much more it could be for the rest of the year. I guess not. But anyway, so that's the update. So the latest number, 6,000. Last time that we knew, 5,000. And it's probably only going to continue to go up. This is crazy. This is a major event. This is a sign of the times. For as much as I disagree with like other Christian churches and their teachings, especially evangelicals, there is good. I do recognize that there is good, and there has been good, and they have played a part in helping America have morals and be a light to the nations. Even though they don't have the priesthood, they don't have all the true doctrines. There's enough there that they have been able to do good in the world. And so while the ideal situation is this entire congregation that we're looking at, that they would find the gospel and be baptized into the true church. um, there's still a lot of good that they do as they are. And so this is not, in my view, it's not necessarily a good thing. Um, well, it could be good or it could be bad. So it's bad in the sense that, these pillars of American society are crumbling. That's not good. And it's weakening America's um, moral system and views. But as these people become disaffected from their denomination, it may open their hearts to other possibilities, including our church. So there could be a silver lining. So I don't know that you can paint this as all good or all bad what's happening. I think there's both good and bad coming out of this. Either way, I'm sure that this is part of, well, it's part of the last days. Let's just put it that way. And I'm sure it was not unexpected by the Lord at all. He sees the future and the past. Everything is before him, both the past and the future. And so, knowing the choices that we make with our agency, he's able to work with that and turn bad things into good. So let's just put it that way. Okay, and lastly, um, there's something going on in another capital city. So before we get into this, let me just remind you of this spreadsheet that I have right here. So as of right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new entries. Okay. This is a spreadsheet where I'm keeping track of capital cities, whether they be capitals of territories, provinces, states, or nations, and just catastrophes or um, disasters, the bad things that are happening in those cities. The idea is that the Lord, when he speaks to us, there's many ways that he can do that, but one big way is if he speaks to us through our capital city, because that's something that sticks in your mind. You know, if something bad happens in the capital of Utah, well, that is potentially a message to the entire state of Utah as well as the church. Same thing for Moscow, for Russia, Belgrade, for Serbia. These are things that stick in your mind because it's like, oh no, it's the capital city. So I have 3 for Phoenix, 1 for Salt Lake, and then this next one for Halifax. And I have these color coded according to the disaster. You can see that Halifax in row 6 is blue, so that indicates flooding. Biblical proportions. 3 months worth of rainfall floods Nova Scotia, forcing evacuations as crews search for missing people. This is from CNN. 3 months worth of rain over the course of one day has flooded the Canadian province of Nova Scotia since Friday night, inundating streets, forcing evacuations, and leaving at least 4 people missing, including 2 children. The province-wide state of emergency has been declared, including for Halifax Regional Municipality, as well as nearby East Hants, West Hants, Lunenburg, and Queens. And then in addition to this is kind of a interesting and not good thing that happened. Um, this is from trains.com. Canadian National Main Line to Halifax washed out by flooding. So this is talking about trains, the main line to Halifax. So um, there you see it right there. You can see that this bridge collapsed. I don't know how long it's going to take to repair that, but Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canadians' national main line to the port of Halifax, Canada's fourth largest port, has been washed out as a result of flooding that caused quote unquote unimaginable damage, according to Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston. So I don't know. I mean, it just blows me away, everything that's happening with all these capital cities, and that's not even to mention major cities that are not capitals like New York City, Detroit, Cincinnati, Chicago. It would be too hard for me to keep track of all major cities. That's why it's kind of easy just to limit it down to capital cities. Um, everything that I have on here, uh, this is just since May 17th. That's my earliest entry. May 17th, with Olympia, Washington experiencing the wildfire smoke from Canada. And all these listings in gray, these are all capital cities whose skies were darkened because of wildfire smoke from Canada, with the exception of one of these. Again, I want to remind you, these are events where the moon is being turned into blood and the sun is being darkened. In some cases, completely darkened. In the case of New York City, there was a tweet where someone said that this was like a blue checkmark person. I believe them. That said that they couldn't see the sun come up in the morning because of how thick the smoke was. So it's going to vary from city to city, but the general effect is taking place across all these different cities. This is a pretty amazing number of things to have happened to capital cities since May 17th. You know, in no doubt, I haven't captured it all. It's going to be impossible to capture all of them. That's why I would ask for your help. If you notice something happening in a capital city, please shoot me that article so I can include it on this list. And we'll keep trying to keep tabs on things. So, the world is broken. It's been broken for a while, obviously. But things are even more intense, I think, right now. You know, what's going on in Israel, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. But what we can say is that this is something that hasn't happened before. There's a number of articles that have talked about how there's never been protests like this before on this scale. So we know that's a fact. As to whether it results in something bigger, possibly second coming inducing, that remains to be seen. And I shouldn't say inducing because the second coming it's at a set time. We've researched that with statements from prophets and apostles. The second coming is a set time. It's not going to be changed because of wickedness. It's not going to be changed because of righteousness. There's a set day and time when that's going to occur. But could it be that this is coinciding, with that day? I don't know. We'll just have to see. So look out for that video that I talked about earlier about Ehud Barak and how he just blatantly and openly talked about the overthrow of the government using protests. And there's a video. It's not even secret. Chatham House has they have a YouTube channel where you can find this full video, but I'm going to talk about all the details in this video when it comes out either later today or tomorrow. If you want to watch it now, or if you want to watch other content that's part of my members only content, then please join. Just click on one of these videos. You can also go up here. You see how it says home, videos, shorts, live playlist, community, and then there's membership. You can also click on that, or in the description box of every video, I also have a link there so you can join members only. It's going to have sometimes exclusive content, sometimes it's just going to be early access, or it could be shorter videos about things like this recent tornado that happened in the southwest part of the Salt Lake Valley that I had no idea about. It can be any number of things, so there's a lot of value in the members only, so consider joining. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.